right. Welcome everybody to the Q&A this week. This is the day after Christmas. Hopefully everybody had a nice time with family, friends, or whatever your situation might be. So because it's almost New Year's and people set resolutions and goals and things like that, which, there's reasons to do that and to not do that. I think that most of us like to mark the year and think in terms of what did we accomplish this year, what went well, and what do we want to go better next year, and that kind of thing. And I think that setting goals is good. I think that New Year's resolutions are silly, but that setting goals are good. And so I want to talk a little bit today about goal setting in general, how to do so in a way that's productive and helpful. Sometimes there's dangers you can fall into with goals. You can sort of set them too high. If there's something that's sort of like unattainable, it's like sometimes you have to be delusional to accomplish great things. But I think when it comes to that's more of a true, something that's true in like finance and business. Like you could set crazy audacious goals and almost anything's possible. But as it pertains to the human body, we have biological reckonings that we have to account for sometimes. And so we want to be reasonable with our goals. So I want to talk through certain factors that can can help you decide on what goals are reasonable and how to pursue them and that kind of thing. So I want to start with what makes a goal good, what makes a goal useful to you, and how how do you evaluate whether the goal that you have in your mind is good, and how do you refine a bad goal into becoming a good goal, or a goal that's not as good into becoming better. And better doesn't necessarily mean that it's bigger, or that if your goal is to lose 20 pounds, now it's to lose 30. That's better. That's not necessarily better. That could be worse. It could be or less good, shall we say. And so here's how I evaluate goals when it comes to fitness. There's different kinds of goals, but as it pertains to our physical fitness, our strength, our body composition, maybe mental clarity, general performance as a person, here's how I like to kind of think about those things and evaluate whether or not a goal it's a good goal and it's worth pursuing and you're kind of on the right track. So goals need to be measurable. So when you set a goal, it shouldn't be lose weight. It should be lose X pounds of body fat, or lose X amount of pounds on the scale. And we've talked about the scale not always necessarily being the best, but maybe you've evaluated the goal properly and 20 pounds of scale weight is ideal for you, or whatever that number might be. So the measurability is very important. A lot of people set goals like, I want to, whatever this year, I want to, and the more specific it is, the more likely you are to succeed, because you'll be able to measure your success. You can't measure success very well if your goal is to lose weight this year, or to be like lighter than I've been in a couple years, or something like that. Like, you need a number. You need a number that says, this is what I'm shooting for. This is the body fat composition I'm looking for on a DEXA scan. This is the waistline I'm shooting for. These are how big I want my arms to be, or how small I want my arms to be. If you're a woman, maybe it's how small you want your hip measurement to be, or something along those lines. So have very specific numbers in mind, and then track your progress regularly, very, very regularly. Usually weekly on almost any fitness goal is the way to go. Now, if you're talking about strength goals, it's hard to go that route. So I don't necessarily say track it that way. But when you're talking about body composition and fitness, track something usually by a very specific number, measure weekly, log it, make sure you track it. I've got a question here. Let me take a look. How does someone know their ideal weight should be given the BMI chart is trash? That's a good question. It's actually a really good question that's worth its own talk in a way. So why is the BMI chart trash? Those of you who might be listening and find this shocking information, the BMI chart is useful for people who are sarcopenic and have no muscle mass. As soon as you have a healthy level of muscle mass, which is pretty much a more is better equation, apart from taking drugs and things like that, then once you carry very much muscle mass, it skews the BMI. I think my BMI is, I'm in the morbidly obese category. I'm like well into the 30s. Like, I should be like dead by the time I'm 40 or something, according to BMI. But I'm highly muscular. I have really good insulin sensitivity, I have good blood pressure, and I don't have that much body fat. So does BMI apply to me? No. Same thing for like everybody who's here. BMI is almost useless to you. So how do you know your ideal weight? It's going to be based on your body fat percentage generally. So, and the funny thing about body fat percentage is the more muscle you carry, the more weight you can carry at the same percentage, right? So if your lean body mass increases by 15 pounds because you've been training for a few years, then then you get to add a few pounds to how much fat you could potentially carry and still be at the same percentage. That doesn't necessarily make it healthy, but you can kind of get away with it. I'm just putting that out there. Now, I'm not saying, that means be fat. I'm just putting that there as a factor as you evaluate percentages. And also as you try to seek a body fat percentage that's low. So if you're like, I want to get to, I'm just throwing a number out here, 15% body fat. You might look less lean than a average person who's at 15% body fat because they have so much less mass. That 15% means something different on their frame. So just bear that in mind. So what I would say in answer to your question is you should shoot for body fat percentages, and it should not be measured by those electric scales because those electronic scales are skewed all over the place. Those things say I have like 40% body fat or something last I checked. They're not very useful once you fall outside of the norms of society in terms of your body composition. And the more you train, the more wrong it's going to become. The most accurate is going to be DEXA scan or calipers. Calipers are actually probably the most accurate in my opinion. DEXA scans, they like to talk about how accurate they are and all this other stuff. You put a bodybuilder on there that's stage ready, some of them will show like 1% or -% fat, which is not possible. But at 1% body fat, you basically die. No bodybuilder gets down to that. They get down to like 5%. So the greatest of all time have gotten down to like 4%, but that's it. So like it's we want to be delusional when it comes to evaluating body fat. There's the most accurate method is the 9-site caliper method, where you pinch 9 places on your body, you punch them into an equation. You can Google this. You punch all the millimeters in, and it'll tell you what your body fat percentage is. It's pretty darn accurate. It's pretty good, and it's going to also tell you where you're losing. Because if you measure all 9 of those, then you're going to know like where you've lost it too, which can be useful information. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be trying to target where you lose weight, because honestly, there's really no reliable way to do that. Aside from, I can't remember, cool sculpting, which is not what we're talking about here. But if you're losing fat naturally, you can't target it really. If sometimes with women, if hormones are manipulated in particular ways, you kind of can, but it's really unreliable, not something that's worth seeking. So we'll just cast that aside for now. The more reasonable method is to get you a set of calipers on Amazon and pinch in 1 to 3 places weekly and measure those millimeters. I like my favorite, if you're going to just do one, and this is what I use personally, is the oblique measurement. So you're going to pinch basically, because you kind of have that I forget the name, I don't know what the name, but that fold of belly skin that you have, by your waistline, you're going to pinch on the side. Basically, the way I do it is to make sure it's the same every time. I find that pelvic hip bone on the side, and I come above it where the skin, that sort of the thicker part of the skin, I pinch that off, and then that's what I pinch the calipers right next to my fingers. And I do this 3 times, and whatever the average is, that's what the number is. And you want to kind of do it slowly. You want to do this first thing in the morning because your hydration, you'll be dehydrated in a more consistent manner because hydration levels fluctuate throughout the day as you go about your day and do different things. So that's the best way to track. Now this is all pre-framing. Sorry, Christina, but you're getting the long version. That's the most reliable way. Those will often come with a chart for like how to say what your, based even on one oblique measurement, what your body fat percentage probably is. And it's going to be a combination of that measurement plus your age, because how much it could, because your hydration changes, and so therefore how much can be pinched changes as you age. Basically, the older you get, the drier you become. And so that's a good way to establish where your percentage is. It's easy, it's cheap, you don't need anything special, and it works very reliably. For women in particular, you're usually going to want to use a more complex method that factors in lower body fat and belly fat at a minimum. There are other caliper measurements that there's not just 9 sites, there's like 5 sites and 3 sites and other things. You can Google it, find your favorite one, use it. But the belly one is honestly pretty good. Now that you've established, now that you know your percentage, what's a good percentage? For women, now this is just my opinion. You're going to find information about this all over the place on the internet. Like it's going to be numbers. I've seen people saying that up to 30% is healthy in women. In fact, I think that's fairly common to believe. My opinion, this is just purely an opinion based on the data that I've been exposed to in my experience with people. My opinion is that women can be very healthy between 14% would be the bottom. And then once you start going below 14% body fat, not all women, but certain women begin to have hormone issues and certain other issues like that. Up to about 20% would be the max for health purposes, in my opinion. This is sort of like unqualified, non-medical advice, but I've been exposed to a pretty good data set on the topic, so I feel like that's fair to say. Related to a discussion I just did, actually, that's going to be released in another video, the younger you are, the higher of a body fat percentage you can get away with. As you age, fat becomes a greater liability. So people that show pristine metabolic health, say you are 25 years old and you're a woman who is, I don't know, 5'5". I don't know if that's the height of anybody here. Sorry if it is. 5'5", and you weigh 250 pounds. There, something that nobody here is. And your blood work says you're fine. You have good blood pressure. You're 25 years old. Great. 30 years old, same thing. Numbers are creeping up, but it's still fine. At a certain age, all of a sudden, you are pre-diabetic and then type 2 diabetic. And then your blood pressure goes from fine to now you're hypertensive. Just a factor of aging, and if you maintain the same weight. So just know that the upper end of what could be considered healthy for you goes down, and as you age, losing weight gets harder. So I'm going to always skew towards the lower numbers. And so again, I'll just say 14 to 20% for women. For men, it's going to be about 10 to 12% even, but I'd say probably about 12%, up to about 16%. And that's actually pretty lean. I personally am probably, I'm going to guess around 15%, 14% would be my guess. I'm kind of in the middle of that, maybe even slightly in the upper end if you go down to the 10%. I will also say that the bottom of the threshold of healthy body fat goes up as you age. So you do not want to be a skinny old man or a skinny old woman. When you're 40, as a man, being 10% was fine, but when you're 50, it's probably not. Whatever those numbers are, there's a certain threshold where you actually do want to carry a little bit of body fat. Yeah, and like Emily said, most women feel and look really good around 20%, in my opinion. Now, this is this is now me speaking for how all women look. This should be turned into a short, and then it can go viral, and everybody can hate on me. But most women will actually appear quite lean at 20%. It's really true. You won't appear to be carrying excessive weight at that point. In most cases, and you'll be healthy, generally speaking, and it shouldn't cause any health complications. You can go lower and still be healthy, and you can go higher, but from there it begins to become a health liability, and at a certain age will become such, in my opinion. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, I wouldn't use BMI at all, but if I put myself in, if I put myself in a woman's shoes, I would be looking to, I'd want to be walking around with like 16 to 18%, so that like during the holidays, if I gained a couple pounds, it's fine. And then you lose it, a little bit later because you do a little bit of extra walking, or you calorie restrict for 1 month and lose a couple pounds. That's because I always like to be, have a little bit of margin or something along those lines. So hopefully that's helpful. So like a good goal could be a certain percentage of body fat, but remember, as measured by X, because we don't really know what our body fat is, and nobody actually does. I'm pretty agnostic on the topic. So as measured by this chart on these calipers, that's how I established my goals, by the way. My goal over the summer was consistently get down to 7 millimeters on my oblique measurement with that specific measurement with my specific calipers, because maybe other calipers would show differently. Don't know, don't care. I just knew that's where I wanted to get after this summer when I gained all that weight. And I did. I got to that composition in late October. And then I was done. And I've been maintaining ever since. I've gained a few pounds, which is natural with water and stuff. And there might be some holiday weight on there as well. We'll see in January once everything evens out and I'm back onto a more regular diet. So back to the goals discussion. So, man, I got really derailed there. So essentially, you want it specific. You also want it to be attainable. So if you're a woman who's walking around at 30% and your goal is to get down to 10% in 1 year, it's probably a fool's errand. The only way you're going to get there is by compromising your health, most likely. So I wouldn't do that. Like even women that are bodybuilders, like they don't do a bodybuilding prep. Like they'll spend like a year or two coming down when they want to get into the sport. They spend like a year or two coming down to be like 15% walking around before they even start doing a hard diet into a real competition phase, because it's just fairly infeasible to drop that much weight. And it can just be compromising to your health to do so. And so they just often won't. Men can get away with more in this regard. And so the thing about the goals too is you want to set some dates around it. Like if you say just this year, it's really tough. Like in 2025, I want to be this percent or this many millimeters on my oblique measurement. What if you actually said, I want to be at, I'm throwing numbers out here, 15 millimeters in March. I want to be at, and in June, I want to be at 12, and then we're going to be at 10 millimeters by November or whatever. Just set those numbers, and those will give you targets. And you also want to periodize your approach. You can't diet year round necessarily. It's going to be something that you need to drop weight and then maintain, and drop weight, then maintain. And you can't just linearly drop weight. It doesn't work that way. And you need to give your body a break sometimes. It's just the way, and women are more sensitive to this than men. You do need to give yourself breaks. You need to have times where you just eat maintenance for a while. And again, I can help you with that. Those of you that are wanting to try this kind of thing, just talk to me and I'll help you structure it properly. Those would be the main things I'd say with the goals though. And make sure that they're not anything related to, I'm going to work on this. Like a lot of people's New Year's resolutions are, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start going to the gym. Well, what does that mean? Like, it's not, you can't measure that outcome. I went to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym twice a week all year. Well, guess what? There's a lot of fat, out of shape people in gyms that are there very regularly, and they're just as unhealthy as people that don't go to the gym. So like, it's not a meaningful enough goal really. If now your goal could be, I'm going to do every workout that Justin gives me, or something like that. Well, I have confidence that my workouts that I give you guys are good. So it could be that, but I'd rather it be outcome based. I'd rather it be, I want to add some muscle mass. I want to lose fat. I want to, if you're a woman, bench 135 for the first time, or deadlift 300 pounds. If you're a man, I want to deadlift 500 pounds or 600 pounds, or bench 315. That's a big milestone that most men never get to, and we all want. Set very specific numbers. Make sure they're reasonable. If it's your first year of training and you're, a man that's like skinny, then benching 315 is not the cards for you. And most women will never bench 315. So don't set that as your goal. So hopefully that kind of helps. I don't have much else to say on the topic. I'll hang around for a second in case anybody has anything in the comments, but I hope that was helpful in trying to establish some of those goals. Another goal that can work really well for women is to buy a piece of clothing and declare that you're going to fit into it, for some family function around Christmas the following year, something like that. Or fit into a pair of jeans that you haven't fit into in a long time, or a dress or a skirt or something along those lines that you haven't been able to fit into, but you still have. But keep in mind Then as a woman, you may not when you're training, because your lower body will hang on to mass, muscle mass, and you might have to get extremely lean. So just realize that you do have to be reasonable. Just because you fit into it 10 years ago doesn't mean that with training you're ever going to fit into it again if you were like super skinny and had no muscle mass. If you carry, women can carry a lot of muscle mass on their lower bodies. If you're carrying much muscle mass, you're not going to be able to fit into, like, if you had some really tight skinny jeans 10 years ago, if you were under muscled. So just make sure, you do have to like look at the details a little bit and be careful how you set these goals, because goals can be just as discouraging as they are encouraging. So I hope that's helpful to everybody. I appreciate you guys showing up. I do encourage everybody, if you're trying to track your body composition, get a set of calipers and get a measuring tape. And measure around, women measure on your belly, your waist, your hips. Those are important. And then do some caliper measurements as well. And that's a great way to track the changes in your body composition as you drop weight.